Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, all.
You can hear me? The service is good? So far, so good. Okay. Now, let me know.
Tell me if you can't hear.
Okay. Here we go. Oh, I didn't move my marker. Okay. 30A at the top. Yeah. So we just had a statement of Rav who said that one who writes a Sefer Torah and wants to finish and is going to finish it, so you can finish even in the middle of a column. Now, here we're going to see the word daf. Daf means a column. So, and on a lot of things we're going to learn today, I think there are a lot of different opinions and I'm sure extensive footnotes. And so that which Rav said, that one who writes a Sefer Torah and wants to finish it, you can finish even in the middle of a column. You don't have to finish the column. Mesa, on that, we have a brisa that says, don't finish in the middle of a column. When it says chumashir, it either means they would write their own scrolls, their own mini scrolls. And nowadays, imagine if you only had a bereshis, only had a shmos, they had their own scrolls that they would write. And there they would finish in the middle. But on a Sefer Torah, it should not be like that. Ella mekatzer v'holech ad sof hadaf. Rather, you should shorten it and get it in at the end of the column. So that's against Rav. Rav said you could finish even in the middle of a column. And here it says really you should get to the end of the column. So says the Gemara, Kikam Rav b'chumashin. That which Rav said you could do it is only about chumashim. Says the Gemara, how can you say that? Rav said, Sefer Torah Kamar. He said in a Sefer Torah, not in a chumash. So says the Gemara, b'chumashin shel Sefer Torah. So there's the chumashin shel Sefer Torah means when you finish off, when the scribe, the sofer, is writing the Sefer Torah and he finishes Sefer Bereshis, he finishes Sefer Shmos, he finishes Sefer Vayikra. At the end, that's where Rav said when you end up one of each of the 5 books, each of the 4 books, the 5th one's its own halachas, but the first 4 books, that's when Rav said you should not finish it off in the middle of a column. If you're writing your own scroll, your own.
You're freezing.
Okay. That's not a good sign. Charles, you can hear me?
Yes, you had frozen for a while. Now you're not frozen.
Okay. If I freeze again, let me know. We'll switch to Jules Zoom. So, Ini v'hamar of Yeshua bar Abba, Amar of Gidal Amarav. Says of Yeshua bar Abba, Amar of Gidal Amarav, le'ene kol Yisroel. It says the last 3 words of the Torah are le'ene kol Yisrael. So, says the Gemara, that's be'emtza hadaf. So isn't that in the middle? Isn't that in the middle of a column? Says the Gemara, hahi be'emtza shita. No, that you can finish off in the middle of a line. Now, on this idea that you can finish off in the middle of a line, but not in the middle of a column, itmar rabbanan amri af be'emtza shita. You can even do in the middle of a shita, in the middle of a line. Rav Ashi amar be'emtza shita dafka. You specifically should finish in the middle of a line. The hilchasa, the emta, shita, dafka. You should specifically finish in the middle of a line. But not in the middle of a column. So you can finish in the middle of a line, but you cannot finish in the middle of a column. Okay. Amar of Yeshua bar Abba, Amar of Gidal, Amar Rav. This is very interesting. A lot of ink spilled on this next part. There's maybe we'll give it over one time. There's a beautiful commentary from the Vilna Gaon about this. Amar Shmona Psukim Shabbat. Well, not this, coming up after this. The 8 psukim in the Torah, Yachid Kori Osan Beis HaKnesses. So an individual reads these in shul. Now, also a big debate what this means. So we'll go with Rashi, but there's many others who differ. So Rashi says that when the Baal Koreh is reading the Sefer Torah, there's no pause in these 8 verses. No aliyah stoppage in the middle. You got to read these 8. They come as one unit. So who's that like? That's not like the opinion of Reb Shimon. Kiman, Delo, Kirib Shimon. The Tanya, as the Brisa says, Vayom Hashem Moshe, Eved Hashem. So in the Torah it says, Moshe, the servant of God, died. So now, Efsher Moshe Chai V'Kasav, Vayom Hashem Moshe. Possible Moshe is alive and he wrote down that he died? How does that work? So the first opinion is interesting. It says, Ad kan kasav Moshe, mikan ve'ela kasav Yeshua ben Nun, Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That the first, until the last 8 verses was all Moshe Rabbeinu. From then onwards is Yoshua ben Nun. The Amrila, but some say no. Rabbi Nechemia Amar lo Rabbi Yeshua after Chasaros Achas. It can't be. How Rabbi Yeshua said? Could it be that the Sefer Torah is even lacking one letter? The Ksiv Lakuach a Sefer Torah Hazev V'Samtim also. Moshe Rabbeinu referred to the Torah as the Sefer Torah. If in Moshe's life there's 8 verses missing, he would never refer to the Torah as the Sefer Torah, because even if one letter is missing, so then it's invalid. So it must be Moshe had the Sefer Torah, even though it said Moshe, the servant of God, died. So how does that make sense? So El Adkan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer Moshe Kosev. Until that point, Hashem would say it over, and Moshe would follow him. So Hashem would say Vayomer, and Moshe would say Vayomer. So he would repeat after him. I think that's a source that when you write Sefer Torah nowadays, the scribe says the words out loud, I believe. El Adkan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer Moshe Kosev. The Omer v'Kosev. Hashem would say, Moshe would say. He would repeat after him. Mikan ve'elach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer u'Moshe Kosev v'Dima. The last 8 verses Hashem said, but Moshe wasn't able to repeat after him. He was crying because he was talking about, I'm going to die. So, K'moshe lehalon vayomer lahem baruch b'piv yikarei elai es kol advar me'ela v'ani kosev al sefer b'diyo. So this is from Yirmiyahu. So it was writing Kinos, the things we say in Tisha B'Av, the very sad what's Kinos in English? How do you say it in English? The Kinos, yeah. So there he would he also was not able to speak out the words because it was such a sad something sad that he was doing, so he wasn't able to speak it out either. So we see that the anguish causes someone the inability to repeat or to say it out loud. So we're saying Lema Dilo Kirib Shimon. Say that this is not like Rib Shimon because Reb Shimon is in this Bryce is the one who says that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote those last 8 verses. So since it says that he was the one that wrote the last 8 verses, so then it should be like every other pasuk in the Torah. And if the Baal Koreh is reading it, you could stop in the middle. What's the difference? So says Afilu Teima Reb Shimon Ishni. At the end of the day, these 8 psukim were written differently, and therefore, they're going to have different laws. The Vilna Gaon I haven't looked up in a long time, but the Vilna Gaon, the whole thing that Moshe actually wrote, the whole Torah was written with ink, and this part was written with Moshe Rabbeinu's tears. There's a whole very interesting, So it's interesting though, the Sefer Torah itself, the Ramban writes in its introduction to the Torah, all the Torah is the names of God. I mean, it can be rearranged in different ways that all represent the names of God. Name of God means the way he interacts with this world. So the Torah is the blueprint for the world. So we have the words now in a certain way, but in their authenticity. So the ones who know, you could read it all. It could be one long run-on sentence, which means X in Kabbalah or other areas. So it's interesting. So Amar Bishua Barab, Amar of Gidel, Amar Rab. Halokeach Sefer Torah Menachos. Very interesting. Also, a lot of ink spilled on this is when you buy a Sefer Torah from the marketplace, it's like Kechotef Mitzvah Menachos. It's like you grabbed a mitzvah from the marketplace. So Rashi learns you did a mitzvah by buying it, and this gets involved in the last mitzvah in the Torah. Last mitzvah in the Torah says you should write for yourself a Sefer Torah. Doesn't mean you should actually do the writing. Doesn't mean you should have a Sefer Torah. What is the parameters of that halacha? A lot of it comes from here. So Rashi learns that just buying a Sefer Torah is actually doing a mitzvah. Others argue, no, so you actually have to write or pay someone to write it for you. So one opinion, the Rush happens to say that nowadays one can fulfill the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah with buying Sfarim, buying Jewish books. Because the whole point of writing the Sefer Torah was you have it there and it's going to teach you. So buying books nowadays that interpret it could also do that. So, next time you feel guilty from buying too much, remember that Rush. So, Kasu, if you write the Sefer Torah, Malav Kasu, Hilu Kiblu Mehar Sinai. If you actually write the Sefer Torah, we view it as if you received the Torah from Sinai. I think I looked up one of the footnotes. What this means is that the same way the Jews were willing to exert effort and go into the desert, if you're willing to exert effort and actually write a Sefer Torah, so you get the same, as if it's the same. We see that you're someone who's willing to exert effort for Torah. So Amar of Sheshes, im higia afilos achas, ma'alav akasav kilu kasvo. Even adjusting one letter, putting one letter in, is considered as if you wrote it. That's why when a shul is writing a Sefer Torah, so they'll have different members, just adjust one part of the letter, put a little, and that also counts. Tana Rabbanan Ose Adam Yiriya Mibas Shalosh Dapin the Ad Bas Shmona Dapin. So you'll see that in the Sefer Torah, right? It has different. Every so often there's a seam which is connected to the next group of seams. Right? You're supposed to do Hagba and fill up on that seam because if not, it's easily ripped. But the seam is a part where it's very tightly connected. That's the ideal way to do it. So how big should that be? 3 to 8 columns. Mibas shalosh dapin v'ad bas shmona dapin. Dapin here means columns. So pachos mikan v'yeser alkein lo yasa. Less than 3, more than 8, do not do. V'lo yarbe b'dapin mipnei shenira igeres. And you should not lo yarbe b'dapin. You should not do more than 8. Mipnei shenira igeres lo yimay b'dapin mipnei she'einav mishutatos. And you should not do less than that because if you do more than that, more than 8 in one area, it looks like a letter that you're putting everything in very small before the into a big section. If you do less than 3, so then it's like you have 2 very big ones, very wide columns. So then the eyes could wander. So you do 3 to 8 columns in the seams. Ella kigon, also interesting. Lemishpecho seichem shalosh pa'amim. The word lemishpecho seichem 3 times. So that word 3 times. So I think 3, 6, 9, 10. 30 letters worth. 30 letters worth in a column, I believe. Um,
Presented with
Right.
a negative 9, huh?
before that. So it's going to be the word Lemishro Seichem 3 times over. So what happens if you have that 3 times? That what? That fills in one column, no?
This is the width of the 30 letters.
Yeah. I mean, that's the minimal amount. Minimum amount. Sorry. So that'll be the minimum amount. Lemishro Seichem 3 times. Yeah, is that what it says? It's the minimum amount?
Just 9 columns is supposed to be divided into
Before that. Before that.
You know, for Sehem 3 times.
3 times. Okay.
So
That'll be the minimum amount. Now, Nizdamlo Urea Bas Teisha Dapim. You have a column which is 9. You have a urea parchment, which is Teisha Dapim, 9 columns. So how should you do it? So don't do 3, 3, 3. Lo yachlok shalosh cham v'sheish. Sorry, don't do 3 and 6. 3 here and 6 there. Ela arba lekan v'chamesh lekan. Rather, you should do. If you have parchment of 9, so you should do so. Once you can't do 9, right? You have to do 3 from 3 to 8. So you have a parchment of 9. So what do? How do you divide that up? You can't have 9 and then sew it up. So you do, instead of 3 and 6, you do 4 and 5. Okay. But med dvar mamurim betchilas sefer. That's in the beginning of the sefer. Aval besofa sefer, at the end of the sefer, afilu pasuk echad vafilu daf echad. If it's at the end of the sefer Torah, so then afilu pasuk echad afilu daf echad. So this is a cryptic line. So it means that if you're at the end of the sefer, it sounds like you can even write one verse across an entire column, or you have one column can take up the entire parchment. You can't do that in the beginning of the sefer, but you could do that at the end. Pasuk echad salkadaitach, one verse, take up an entire column. Ela ema pasuk echad bidaf echad. You put one verse in one column, not one verse for the entire parchment. One verse in one column. That's what you are allowed to do. Okay. Shir Gilyon Milamata. So when you're actually writing the words of the Sefer Torah, so you have to have a space under the words Milamat. Sorry, the end of the column, you have to have a tefach of a space, a fistful of space at the end of the column to the bottom of the parchment. Milamala, on top of the first word on the column, and above that, how much parchment should be left? 3 fingers worth. 3 fingers worth. Ubein daf lidaf, and between column to column, kimole rechav revach roichev shtei etzbos. The amount of width of 2 fingers between column to column. Ubichumashin, if you're writing your own chumash, Bereshis, so what do? Milamata shalosh eshbos. The words to the bottom of the parchment is 3 fingers. Milamala shtei etzbos. But on top, the words on top is going to be 2 fingers. Ubein daf lidaf kimoloi revach roichev. And between the columns is kimolei recha revach roichev. Take out the word roichev. Yeah, revach goidel. It's the space. Literally means the space of a thumb. So I believe it means the space, at least according to some, the space between your index finger and your thumb. That's if you're writing your own chumash. Okay, ubein shita l'shita. Now, in the lines themselves, so between line to line, you have to have a space of kimol shita, enough that you can put a line in the middle. You have to have that much space in between one line to the next line. Uben teva l'teva, between one word to another. Between one word to another word is kimole os ktan. Has to be between each word has to be the amount of the smallest letter. Probably a yud. Ubein os laos, between letter to letter, is kimale chuta saira, is the amount of a hair's breadth. So I mean, you can't be touching, but the smallest amount that's not considered touching, like the hair's breadth, is enough. So okay, fine. So that's that. Now, al yimait adam as a ksav. So a person should not make very small letters.
Reduce the size of the script.
Right, you shouldn't reduce the size of the script. My other message ksav lo mipnei revach shel mata, velo mipnei revach shel mala, velo mipnei revach shebein shita leshita, velo mipnei revach shebein parsha le parsha. So, if you have to, for some reason, reduce the size, let's say let's say we just said on the bottom the size is a tefach, on the top it's 3 fingers, but let's say on the bottom, there's too many words in this column, you're going to end up going over to the next line, and it won't be a tefach anymore. So you should not make the words smaller and smush it in. You shouldn't do that. Not above, not below, not between the lines themselves. So nizdamna lo teva bas chamesh osios. Let's say you have a word that's 5 letters, but if there's no room on the bottom line, you're out of space. So what do? So lo yichto shtayim v'toch hadaf v'shalosh chutz hadaf. Don't put 2 letters of the word on the bottom of the page and 3 on the next page. So let's say the word vayomer, it's 5 letters, but you give it more room. Don't do vav and yod on the bottom and then aleph mem resh at the top. Don't do that. So next page. Ella, what should you do? Shalosh b'toch hadaf v'shtayim chutz ladaf. You should do 3 letters and then 2 letters. So instead of making a small 5-letter word, you actually can divide up 3 and 2. Now, why 3 and 2 and not 2 and 3? Not sure. I don't know exactly.
They just say it's unseemly.
Unseemly, okay?
When more than 2 letters.
That interpretation is also unseemly. Yeah. So I guess what it means like this. Maybe what it means like this is that you have enough room to put 3 letters of the word. So putting 2 letters of the word is not so proper because it doesn't look nice. It's not finishing off the parchment, maybe. So if you could fill it up as much as you can and then put the rest on the next line, maybe that's it. Not sure. So, okay. Nizdamna lo teva bas shte osios. You have a word, that's 2 letters. Lo yizrakena lebein hadapin. Don't literally throw it in between 2 columns. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, I think the previous line, I think I made a mistake. I'm sorry. When it said you should put 3 letters in and then 2 letters out, it doesn't mean onto the next column. I think it means outside the column, meaning you have a column and there's outside. Outside, meaning you're not splitting the word into 2, 3 and 2, 3 here and 2 on the top of the next column. I think you're putting 3 within, like you have your white lined paper. So you have the part with the lines. And then if you're like me, so you go outside the lines, right? So here's also, you do 3 and then you do 2 outside, but it's still 1 word, I believe. So now if you have a word that's 2 letters, lo yizrakena lebein hadapim, meaning the actual parchment is carved out. It's made in a special way. It's called a sirtut. It's made in a special way that it's carved out these lines. So if you have a word with 2 letters, so we just told you that 2 letters from a 5-letter word can be put outside the special area where you're supposed to write. But a 2-letter word, you shouldn't do that. So lo yizrakena lebein hadapim. Ella chozer v'koseh b'tchilas hashita. You should just go back and write it at the beginning of a line. Don't smush it in, put it in the beginning of a line. Now, what happens if you make a mistake? Hatoeh b'shem. So a person made a mistake while writing. So I think in this case, he just forgot Hashem's name. But let's say instead of Vayomer Hashem El Moshe, it just says Vayomer El Moshe. Well, now what do? There's no space to put in Hashem's name. So Gorer es masha kasav. You erase, scrape off that which you wrote. So let's say it says Vayomer El Moshe. So you're going to erase the El. Vitola esma shegarar, the kosav es Hashem al makom agrar. The first opinion goes like this. So it says instead of Vayomer Hashem El Moshe, you forgot the Hashem. So you put Vayomer El Moshe. Now you have no room to put Hashem's name. So what do? You erase L. You unscrape the word L. You put there Hashem's name, and you put the L on top because you have a space between the two lines. So you put in the space. What's it called in English grammar? A caret.
Oh,
right? You put a caret, and then so you don't put a caret in the Sefer Torah, but you put the word right on top. Yeah. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer Af Tolen Es Hashem. He says no. You could actually literally hang the name of Hashem, meaning just put it in between the two lines. Leave the word L where it is, and put it in between the two lines. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer Af Mochek. So you erase the word L. The Kosef, you can erase and write it, nothing in between the lines. Erase whatever you have to erase and write down. So, so here there's a difference between gorer and mochek. Gorer is really to scrape off. Mochek is to erase. So scraping off is like not leaving any remnant of the ink there at all. How exactly do you erase? You do with a less, yeah.
using different kind of erase.
Yeah, do they explain what kind of thing you use?
No.
Rashi says that you erase it when it's still wet, meaning once the ink dries, you have to do gorer. You have to scrape it off. When the ink is wet, you erase it. So whatever you need to take, I don't know, tissue, I'm not sure how you do it exactly. Or you very carefully take off that ink, but it doesn't look as though we see the other opinions don't go that off. So, but this one says, Rav Yitzchak says you can even erase, even though it's not as nice as scraping off. Scraping off takes off a little bit more. So, yeah. The Mishnah Pirkei Avos says someone who learns when they're young, like things that are written and then erased. When you erase, you still see some remnants of that. So the learning when you're young, you have a vague memory of something you heard. So that's exactly it. The Koser Shimon Shazuri says, Kol Hashem Kulo, Tolin Miktaso. Kol Hashem Kulo Tolin, Miktaso ain't Tolin. You're allowed to suspend the name of God in between the two lines, but not part of the name. Rabbi Shimon Elazar Omer, Mishum Rabbi Meir, Ain Kosen Hashem, Lo Al Makom Agrar. You cannot write the name of Hashem, not on the place that was scraped off. Below Al Makom Machak, and not on the place that was erased. The Ain Tolin also, and you cannot suspend it. So what do you do? Misalik Esayariya Kula Vigonza. You got to take the parchment, put in Geniza, and start again. Well, Itmar Rav Chananel Amarav Halacha Tolin. It's a shame. Halacha is now. I don't see a letter over here. So I don't know if we go like this, but sounds like we go like. Oh no, we do. Yeah. Halacha, the Tolin Hashem. You can put the name of Hashem in between the lines. Rabbi Chana Amar Rav Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Halacha Mochik. No, you could erase it, v'kosev, and then write it over. When the ink is wet, erase and do it. So 1 second, you have two Amoraic opinions, and we just spoke out a number of Tanayim, right? A Bryce always has the Tanayim. A Bryce is just written at the same time as the Mishnah. So why would you have two Amoraim just repeat Control C and then Control V, right? Why they just copy the opinions of the Tanayim? So it says Amar Kamar. You didn't make this up. You got this from your Rebbeim, so why don't you say them? Say the names. It says Mishum to Afchuluhu, because the names in the Bryce were actually different traditions of who said what. It was flipped. It was so therefore they said it like this. Amar Rabin Bar Chanina, Amar Rav Chanina, Halach Reb Shimon Shazuri. Halach is like Reb Shimon Shazuri, and not only that, and here we go, one of our journeys through random areas of Torah. V'lo ela kol makom sheshana Reb Shimon Shazuri halach kamoso. By the way, not just here. Whenever you see Reb Shimon ben Shazuri, halacha is like him. So here we go. In which cases, and now we're going to go off tangent. Aha, where is the halacha like him? Ilema aha. Maybe you'll say over here, Reb Shimon Shazuri, Omer Kol Hashem Kulo Tolin, Miktaso Ein Tolin. Maybe you'll say over here, in our case, it says that the whole name of God can be hanging between the lines, but not part of it. Amarav Chananel Amarav. Halacha Tolin as a shame. The halacha is you're told as a shame. Rabbi Chana Amar Yitzchak Parshal Halacha Mochik v'Kosev. So you see here that Rav Chananel said the name of Rav halacha is Tolin as Hashem, And Rabbi Bar Chana says halacha is like mochik v'kosev. So if Isa, if the halacha is really like Rabbi Shimon ben Shazuri, so then we should put his name in this mix. He should be here, and then we'll know the halacha is like him. So V'im Isahu Nami Lema, you should say one opinion, two opinion, and then say that Rabbi Shimon Shazuri is like the opinion of Rav Chanan Amar Rav. So his name is left out. So where do we find that he's mentioned and the halakha is like him? If it's by this halakha of our Sefer Torah, we have the other opinion, then his name is omitted. So El Aha, Rabbi Shimon Shazuri Omer, Afilu bein chamesh shonim b'chorish b'sada, shchita imo mitharasa. So there's something called a ben pakua, where you slaughter the animal and you actually find inside of it a fetus that's alive. So the question is, does that fetus need its own shchita, or the shchita of the mother works for it? So there are different opinions about this. So yeah, so one opinion is that according to Rav Shimon Shazuri, even if it ends up being 5 years old, I mean, even if it can walk on its own feet and survive, you do not need to do its own shechita. Rather, it's going to be the shechita of the mother is going to work for it. So there's a big debate if it's an 8-month fetus, a 9th-month fetus, if it could walk on its own 2 feet, if it can't walk on its own 2 feet. All those opinions, Rabbi Shimon Shazuri says, even if it's a 5 years old and it's chorish besada and it can plow its own field, still its mother's shechita worked for it. So now the Itmar law, Zeiri Amar Reb Chanina, on this Rabbi Zeiri said in the name of Reb Chanina, halacha Reb Shimon Shazuri. The halacha is like Reb Shimon Shazuri. V'im Isa, v'im Isahu Nami Lema. Now, one second. So, one second. So there in Chulin, we mentioned the opinion of Zeiri. So now the Gemara is saying Rabbi Shimon Shazuri's name should have been mentioned over there also, with Zeiri, meaning Zeiri said Allah is like Rabbi Shimon Shazuri, but Rabbi Shimon Shazuri's own opinion wasn't mentioned there. So we're looking for a case where his opinion is mentioned. You have a bunch of others mentioned, and when you have a bunch of other opinions mentioned, you'll mention Rabbi Shimon Shazuri. But there, his name wasn't mentioned in the bunch. It's just Zeiri mentioned in his name. But we're looking for when you have, because someone just told us that Rabbi Chanina said whenever you have Rabbi Shimon Shazuri's name with a bunch of other opinions, halakha is always like Rabbi Shimon Shazuri. In that case, his name wasn't mentioned. Zeiri said in his name the halakha is like that, but he wasn't mentioned. He wasn't in the mix. So Ella Aha, maybe it's on the following case. Barishona how you omrim originally used to say as follows: one who's going to divorce his wife, so he has to say, you should write the get and you should give it to her. So let's say he goes and he's going out Kollel in chains to be killed, and he says, "Va'amar kisvu get ishti," write a get for my wife. He never said and give it to her. In a regular case, it's not going to help us. But in this case, where he's going out to be killed, can you say that saying write a get for my wife, so you understand from his words, he means it, and give it to her? Yeah, because he doesn't want her to become a Yavama, to fall to his brother, and then wait for Yibum or Chalitza. So rather, he says, give her the get. But he said right there, he didn't say give her the get. Does writing when you're going out in chains mean the same as giving? He just didn't say the words. So there's food on the table, and you sit there saying, I'm hungry. But he didn't say, give me the food. But the implication is, I'm hungry, So sometimes we can infer things from what you said. So, they can write it, the messengers can write it and give it. That was what they said originally. Chazur, then they went back, they were trying to say, Chazur Lomar, not only someone who is going to have to be killed, but we made it more lenient. Af hamefarish, someone who goes out, mafresh, who goes out, we live in separate, but it means to go out. V'hayotze b'shayara, he's going out to sea, going on a business trip. So you don't know, first of all, you don't know when he's going to come back. Second of all, going on ships back then was very risky. You don't know if he's going to survive at all. So they allowed, even for such a case, that if you say just right, just give, just right, it means to give. Reb Shimon Shizuri Omer, even more lenient, Af HaMesukan, just someone who's in danger, someone who's on his deathbed. So also over there. So, okay, so there we have Rabbi Shimon Shizuri's opinion. And there we say, oh, we have his opinion down. So the halacha is like him. The first opinion said only when he goes to sea. Even if he's Mesukan, very sick. Also, if he says write a get, it means also to give the get. Okay, that's one opinion. Inami aha. So now there's something called demai. Demai stands for damai. What is this? Meaning, we know that a person who grows produce, that he has to take off meiser, take off tithes. Now, I believe it's a real kind of Menachos. I saw that a number of people were just unlearned. They just don't know what to do. And therefore, he enacted that whenever you take and you buy food from a not knowledgeable person, an am haaretz, an unknowledgeable person, you have to assume that the tithes were not taken off. You take off your own tithes. So for all intents and purposes, whenever you buy from someone who's not learned, right now your food, your produce, is liable to be taken off tithes. You view it as produce that has not been taken off yet. So in general, we take off meiser. And from meiser, we take off trumas meiser to give to the Kohanim. So now the rule is that if any of your and one more thing is that whenever they're not trustworthy. So ask them on a Tuesday or Wednesday, not going to help you. They don't know, except for Shabbos. Shabbos is interesting. Shabbos, if you ask them and they tell you on Shabbos, you don't assume that they're lying because they have a fear of lying on Shabbos. Interesting. So now, the rule is, like all things that are prohibited, when it goes into a mixture of permitted things, there are certain measurements. Most famously, 1/60th. But that's only for meat and milk. There's other measurements for truma and meiser. 1/100th, 1/200th. If you don't have that amount, so then the entire mixture is going to be liable. Okay. So what if you have trumas meiser that went back? It's of demai, which means you took off you bought produce from John. John is on his path to be religious. He's been to one Torah class in his life, and you just bought food from him. So you have to assume he has not taken off any tithes. So you took off meiser, and you took off trumas meiser. Now your trumas meiser, unfortunately, fell back in to all the mundane foods, and you don't know which is what anymore. It's all mixed together. I see 50 apples in front of me, and there's not enough to nullify it. So what do you do? Okay, trumas meiser shel demai shechazor limkomo. It got returned back to its place. Rabbi Shimon Shizuri Omer, af bechol, even on a weekday, shoalu, you can ask them, ve'ochlu al piv. And if they tell you I took off tithes, you believe them. So in this case, we don't say, because what's going to happen? Let's play it out. Let's say right now you took off your meiser and your trumas meiser, and now it falls back into your whole mundane mixture, and you don't have the amount of nullification. So what do? The entire mixture is prohibited. You just lost all 100 apples, 80 apples. Because if you don't have the amount that will nullify it, so then you assume that everyone might be that apple. And that's prohibited for you because trumas meiser go to the Kohen. You're going to lose out on all your things. So says Rav Shimon Shizuri that we want to save you, want to help you out. So therefore, if it falls in and you ask the guy, did you take off tithes? And the guy says yes. Even though it's a weekday, you believe him, which means that when your original produce you bought from him was already tithed, it was fine. So the trumas meiser you took off is no longer trumas meiser because it was no longer a meiser, because you bought produce that's already tied. So therefore you could eat it. Okay. Now, Itmar Allah, on that, I was not doing that. Okay. On that, Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan that the halacha is like Rav Shimon Shazuri when it comes to the person giving the get, when he was very ill, and B'trumas Ma'aser Shel Demai, and in our case. Now, V'im Isahu Nami Lema, once again, why don't we have the opinion of Rav Shimon Shazuri in the mix? Why is it only said in the name of Rav Shimon Shazuri? So, that's our question. So we're still looking for a case where we have all of his opinions and not just Rabbi Yochanan in the name of him. So we will continue from here on Shabbos. And hopefully we'll do a little bit of catch up. We have some very short, not very short, some regular short pages coming up. So all about, I think, writing the Sefer Torah maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Have a great day. Steve, come back safely.
Thank you. Thank you.